Welcome into ClayShareCon 2025 Day 2. Here we are in the afternoon. So we have our first session for the afternoon with Maria Sampson, and she is going to be sharing with us Georgie's Interactive Pigments. Now, if you're not familiar with these amazing products, well, you are in for a treat because they are amazing. I've been using them now for, I don't know, maybe Maria knows how many years, because that's when I met her is when I started using them. But I use them in many classes on ClayShare. They're really a great way to stain and add color to your pottery. I have a really great class that is making test tiles using the Georgie's Interactive Pigments, and this is my board from that class. A few of them got broke when we moved studios, so I got to replace them and make them again. In our mushroom planter class, when I glazed it, I used some Georgie's Interactive Pigments on that. And then this beauty right here, this mug, which is so gorgeous. This is Georgie's Sand and Surf Interactive Pigment, and with their clear, and then I put mother of pearl luster on, so that's why it's so shiny. But this one's mine. I have one extra that I'll have available for sale, I think. Same exact glaze and shape, but I get this one for me. So, all right, let's go to Maria. I know she's got a lot to share with you, and it's going to be such a fun session. So let's go out west and see how she's doing. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Jessica. Hey, everybody. Happy ClayShareCon.
Thank you.
Hope everybody's doing well.
I'm so glad that we were able to get you to come on this year. You've been with us almost every year, I think.
Almost every year. I think just every year except the first year, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think we met, I want to say 2008, 2009. It was the first year the Interactive Pigments came out.
Yeah, so it's been a minute or two.
Yeah, get my old catalogs to actually see. So, all right, let's get into it. I'm going to do just a little brief intro on Georgie's for the new people. If you're old, I'm sorry, not old, but if you've been before, I'm sorry if this is a little redundant, but hopefully you'll definitely learn something new. So Georgie's is, I'm going to put this camera down a little bit too. So Georgie's is in Portland, Oregon. They've got one spot in Portland at this point. And all our distributors right now are on the West Coast. And we do have a couple distributors in Canada now. And people are always asking me to get Glaze Queen as a distributor. Glaze Queen is a distributor, but they're also called Creative Ceramics and Glass, LLC. So Glaze Queen is a Georgie's distributor. What many people don't know about Georgie's is that it is a full stop ceramic shop. And this year, like me, is their 60th birthday. So
happy birthday.
I know. So they were formed in 1965, but it was a plaster craft. So people of a certain age like me, you might still I have some Christmas ornaments, plaster Christmas ornaments that I painted as a child in the 70s. And so they made little plaster pieces and things like that. And over the years, it's morphed into what it is now, which is a full stop ceramic shop. And Georgie really is a person. So when it was a plaster shop, the owner, Georgie's was his daughter. And the owners now, Linda and Melanie, Georgie was Linda's mother. So it is Melanie's grandmother. So Georgie really is a person. And so it is named after somebody. So when I say it's a one-stop shop, they sell glaze and clay that they make, but they also sell Amico, Mako, Coyote, Laguna, Spectrum, Speedball. I don't think I've missed anything there. Tools. Kemper, Mud Tool. They have just about every MKM tool sold. North Star Equipment, Nidec, Shimpo, Scott Kilns. So I have to say about 95% of the tools and the equipment I got at Georgie's because I was blessed enough to actually work there. A lot of people don't realize too that they don't just make clay and interactive pigments, or that they just don't make glazes. They make clay as well. So they have low fire earthenware clay and clay all the way up to cone 10. So I just have a little tile board here to show you of the cone 6 clays. And I don't think the only clay that's missing on here, I think, is Christy Lombard's clay, which really is G-Mix 6 with a different type of grog. So it's got a finer grog in it. And for people who want a Georgie's clay that is similar to B-Mix, you want the white salmon because it's a 50-50 blend. It's half porcelain, half stoneware. So G-Mix, Georgie's mix, is a complete stoneware. White salmon and white salmon with grog is your 50-50 mix. So try that out. And then they have 2 cone 6 porcelain, Silver Falls, and Trillium. Not sure if you can see this whole thing, but Trillium is my go-to porcelain. It's more of a dirty porcelain in terms of it's not quite as white, but it's easier to use. And the clear glaze that fits the porcelains really is the Georgie's No More Tears Clear. It was formulated for their porcelains, and it is zinc-free clear. And I am finding that it fits other porcelains as well. If we have time, I'll tell you about the little issue I'm dealing with right now with a different brand of porcelain and what those issues are. And why I'm testing No More Tears on it, and it seems to work. Okay, so the other thing about Georgie's, just some statistics. There's 30 employees, 29 in Portland, and then moi. I'm their distributor.
Your long distance employee.
Exactly. I'm their distributor representative. So if you know, since we're only on the East Coast right now, distributors, if you know somebody, a store or studio, Midwest, East Coast that wants to be a distributor, reach out to me.
What about the ceramic shop? They don't have them?
No.
I thought, no? Oh, I thought they did.
No, the ceramic shop, no.
No, but they should.
Yeah. So sometimes the issue is to be a full distributor, you really have to carry every one of our glazes. And we have a lot of glazes. So reach out to me. I'll show you at the end how to reach out to me or reach out to Melanie at georgies.com if you know somebody that wants to be a distributor. But we have our gloss line. We have our sculptural textural line. So there's almost 30 in each. We have our satin line. We have our tie-dye line. And we have the raku line. We did discontinue some raku glazes last year.
Maria, can we switch to the overhead? Are you controlling that or is Kevin doing that?
Kevin
hasn't caught me. Okay, because I'm not seeing the sheet. Yeah, I wanted to see.
Let me go back down. Maybe that helps. So I'll do this. Okay. So we've got
the overhead. There's the overhead. Yes.
Oh, there's the overhead. Okay.
There we go.
Line, sculptural textural line, the satin line. And these handouts, my printer's not the greatest, but you can go on their website and pull all these up and look at the colors. Tie-dye line. And these handouts are new except for the raku one. And then, of course, we've got the interactive pigments, which we're going to talk about. So a lot of places don't have room to carry every single one of our glazes. So they're kind of partial distributors, but they can do orders. Okay, last year, Georgie's made 10.5 million pounds of clay. So that is about 420,000 bags of clay. And they made 7,500 gallons of glaze, which is about 60,000 pints, which, if my math is correct, that's about 96,000 12-ounce cans of pop. So 96,000 cans of soda is what that's equivalent to. So even though they're kind of they're a small, they only have 8 people in production. So of those 30 employees, 8 are in production. It's kind of a small production facility. So it's not as big as Mako or Amico, but they're still doing a huge amount of clay and glazes. Okay, today we do have a promo code for everybody on Georgie's brand glazes. And the code is ClayShareCon 2025. And it's through Saturday, so through the end of ClayShareCon. So that's ClayShareCon 2025. It's for everybody. And then once Jessica and Kevin catch their breath, we're gonna reinstate the 20% discount just for Prime members. There were issues with too many, non-Prime members having it, but with the new platform, we can reinstate that. So that'll be good. And today we're going to give away 1 IP kit. Shipping, however, is just for the United States. So we apologize for that. We just have too much loss shipping overseas. But we do have people who are overseas and they use a third-party shipper. So it gets sent to someplace in the United States, and then from there it gets shipped someplace else. But the problem is, if there's any damage, we can't. It's just too much for us to be responsible for that. So you can try that. Now, with the 20% off, it does not include the kits because all the kits are already 40% off. So the interactive pigment kit, if you wanted to buy each individual pigment and glaze that's in the kit, it would be, I don't know, maybe around $125. But the kit itself is 40% off of that. So in the kit, we've got this. You can see the handout. Okay, so in the kit, you have 8 4-ounce jars of the interactive pigments. So you got your tree bark, golden straw, autumn foliage, sand and surf, steel black, winter storm, wormwood, and indigo. And then you have 4 4-ounce jars of glaze. You've got super clear, zinc-free clear, eggshell wash, and latte. Okay, now, what are the interactive pigments? The interactive pigments are mixtures, saturated mixtures of oxides. So they are completely different from underglazes. And they're called interactive pigments because they're oxides, because they interact with the glaze that you put over it or under it. Now, because they are oxides and they are super saturated, when you use them, like I use them on sculptures, full strength, they are not food safe. So in a minute, I'm going to show you how to dilute them, because I don't think I've done that before, so that you can use them on foodware. And they're called interactive because they interact differently depending on how you're using them. So I'm going to show you some flowers here. Okay, now flowers. I always start off using my interactive pigments on a flat surface like this. And I do have a flower cutter that you cannot get because the person has retired. But Debbie Dela Cruz, De La Design, made a flower cutter for me. It comes in all different sizes. And when I make flowers using this for tests, I use the 7-inch. But she also has tons of other flowers on her website so that you can use whatever flower you want. If you don't want to purchase anything, draw yourself a flower, cut it out on paper or craft foam, and use that. So that will work just fine. But what I like to do as the pigments is I like to take and put each pigment on a petal and then put my glaze over it. So as you can see, and I put the pigments on the same way. So I go around. So I have tree bark, golden straw, autumn foliage, sand and surf, steel black, winter storm, wormwood, and indigo on every single one of my flowers. But depending on the glaze I put on top of it, I have a completely different look. So this is soft pink, I think. Yep, soft pink satin. And tree bark. This is blue ink, tree bark on the top. You see how each of those looks different? And that's because you have a different glaze on it. Now, if your interactive pigment is applied too thick, as mine is right here, your glaze will crawl. So that's another thing about putting pigments on too thick. And the other thing that I like to do with this is I'll pick out what combos I like, and then I'll try it on a piece. So I like this blue ink over sand and surf. So I put that, I'll show that in a bit, it's way over there. I put that on a planter, but then I also put it on a bird. So I've got that combo on his wings. So I use these to kind of pick out, see what combos I want to use. And with the interactive pigments, you can use them. These are Amico glazes. This is pear, I think, yeah. And this is glacier. So they work best on celadons and translucent glazes. However, you can play with them. Soft pink satin, that's a satin glaze that's kind of opaque. They're coming through underneath this glaze. So you just have to play with them. This is on aqua gemstone. So this is coming through. This is winter storm. So you can use them with opaque glazes. You just kind of have to play with them. Okay. Questions so far?
Yes, we do. So a couple of them want to know, would it be possible for Georgie's to ship the interactive pigments in powdered form? So it would save on shipping costs.
Yeah, they're not, at this point, in their production, they don't have the equipment that they need to package.
To do the powder.
In powdered form. Mm-hmm. So at this point, that is a no. Okay.
So would the pigment show up on dark clay?
Depends on the pigment, the clay, and the glaze you use on top of it. So you have to test it. I just lost my train of thought. Yeah. So you have to really test it. If it's a dark clay with a celadon glaze, you will get some sort of reaction. I just can't tell you what sort of reaction you're going to get. You have to test it. Okay. So generally I use the interactive pigments. And there's tons of demos. Jessica has demos. I have demos. I brush the interactive pigment on, I wipe it back, I let it dry completely, and then I put my glaze on. And so this is sand and surf interactive pigment underneath maroon right here and underneath Amico's pear. And this actually looks great with Georgie's Fiesta Yellow as well. So usually I'm brushing it on, wiping it back, and then putting a glaze on top of it. This is one of my favorite combos as well. This is burnt orange, but if you can see, I have two different pigments here. This one is sand and surf. This one is autumn foliage. And you can see they look completely different. So depending on the look you want with a particular glaze, you can choose which one. So this is the one I use a lot for my fish. Now, this is what we're going to talk about more today. You can put your interactive pigments. This is over. I'm going to show you how to do a silk screen. You can put your interactive pigments on top of your pieces. Now, here's a caveat. When you put the pigments on top of a piece, you can do some painterly things. However, it is not food safe. Even if you thin it down, it is not food safe because the pigment even though it's kind of melting in, it's still sitting on top of your piece. So if you're going to put the interactive pigment on top of something, please only put it on sculpture, tiles. I wouldn't even use it on the outside of a mug because I've seen people, like, if they spill something over their mug or they splash, they lick the mug, right?
Nah.
So yeah, so it's just not the rim, and you don't know how people are going to use a piece once you do it. So if you're going to put the interactive pigment, which I'm going to demonstrate today, on top, it really is for sculptural tiles, really art only, not for functional pieces. Did you have a question, Jessica?
So we did. Do you get different effects at cone 06 compared to cone 6? Yes.
And the pigments can go all the way up to cone 10 because they are oxides. So you have to test. I do very little cone 4. I don't do any cone 10. And the look would be different. If you're going to do cone 10, it's going to look different in cone 10 oxidation. So in the little L&L test kiln, it's going to look different than oxidation versus reduction because they are oxides. Okay. So definitely test, but the interactive pigments can go any temperature you want. Okay. So when I'm playing with these on top of glazes, what I did was I took some tiles and I put a base coat of glaze. So this is Aegean blue-green, 3 coats. And then I did a swipe and some dots of each of the pigments. Now, whenever you can you see how this is kind of metallic-y? Wherever you see something metallic like this, it is not food safe. Okay, and that is kind of true with any glaze. If something is going metallic, you want to be careful that it's not food safe. Here's another example. This is Blizzard Blue as a base coat. Then I did a wax resist, and then I put the indigo interactive pigment on top of it. And that's really, really metallic. This is not food safe. So just, again, be really careful putting pigments on top of a glaze, not food safe. Now, what I did, because I'm playing with the silk screen that I made, and we're going to do that in a second. This is White Cloud, and then I put the pigments on top. And Sand and Surf is one of my favorite interactive pigments. So I wanted to see what Sand and Surf look like with the silk screen. So I did Sand and Surf, and I did, what is that, indigo. So I used the silk screen, and this is what it looks like on top. But then to compare, this is what Sand and Surf looks underneath White Cloud. So this is the interactive pigment on top of White Cloud. This is interactive pigment under White Cloud. Okay. And then I made this was from a little chip tool, the extruder. And so I did 3 coats of White Cloud, and I dripped the sand and surf on top of it. I just wanted to see what that would look like. So just a little flower base. So you're going to get a completely different look with the interactive pigment over a glaze versus under a glaze. Now, I saw part of Kathy Skaggs this morning. It was either last year or the year before. I used the interactive pigments with the stamp. This was just a stamp I had, and this was an easy screen, silk screen. So let's kind of get into that. Questions?
So we did have a question, but I think you're going to go to it. If you use them watered down, will they be food safe under like clear and other glazes?
Yeah, that's what we're going to go through right now.
We're going to get to that. So
the interactive pigments, whenever you use them, wear your gloves because they are oxides. Now, if you want to use them on food surfaces, they must go underneath a food safe glaze, and you must dilute it by a minimum of 50%. I think, Jessica, at one point you said you dilute 75%. Right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. And I know there's concern, but here's the thing. Even if they mingle with the glaze and the pigments become one and the pigment comes to the surface, there's not enough pigment material that can leach. So it's not a risk when you dilute it that much, but you have to dilute it a lot.
Yes.
I not only dilute it 75%, I also wipe it back after it's been diluted.
Exactly.
So mine's like 75 cut in half again. So I don't know.
Exactly.
What is that? I don't know. Like not 25% pigment.
80%, 5%.
It's like what? 12.5% pigment.
Exactly.
To water is what it ends up being. It's so small, it's fractional, so it's okay.
Because these pigments really are, they really are super saturated. And like I said, when I use them, because I'm using them on sculpture, I use them full strength because I want some of these crystals and some of these different effects that you're going to get. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you how to dilute this. Now, this is a really old jar of autumn foliage. I don't use it that much. And I don't know if you can see, but there's water just sitting on top. And what I see a lot of people do is they take their brush, and I see people doing this with glaze too. When they're mixing it, they take their brush and they just kind of mix the top of it. And that's it. You have to really get in there and mix this up. Look at all of this at the bottom. Okay, so really go in here and mix this up as much as you can. And your pint jars, your 4-ounce jars, they come full. So, I mean, in order to dilute, you have to take it out. So I've got this really mixed up. And what I'm going to do is, the other thing too, I use my old ratty brushes for my interactive pigments. I just started doing that when I was in the classroom setting because the brushes weren't getting completely clean and they were contaminating the glaze. So you don't, because they're oxides, they're going to really impact your glaze if your glaze gets contaminated. So really clean the brushes that you're using with your interactive pigments. Or do what I do and take your really old brushes that you're going to throw away and use those. So what I do is it's mixed really well. I put a little bit in a container. Now, if you really want to be anal, which, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I'm kind of really anal about things too. But you can get measuring spoons or measuring cups. However, once you use them on the pigments, don't use them for anything else. And then I'm going to measure out. Now, my pigment was really thick in there. So it's a lot of the water has dehydrated. So I'm probably going to add twice as much water. So I've got, I don't know if you can at the side camera, if you can see, I've got definitely more water than more pigment. I'm going to pour that in here. I don't know, it'll all fit. And then I'm going to really mix this really well. And this is what you want to use. So if you look at my brush, can you see the difference between the look on my brush here and when I put it back in here, how dark that is? So that just shows how much this is diluted. And when it's diluted, it definitely brushes on a lot easier. So that's how you dilute that. So does that answer that question? And when you dilute it, let me grab something right quick. I'll do this. We have time. I'll do this. We do. Let me grab. I like to make little tacos. And I like to use the texture that I'm going to try to use on my pieces. And this is a texture mat I made. Okay, so I'm going to wipe this on, and you see when it's diluted, when this is diluted, it really just kind of flows on. So it's kind of like when you've seen Jessica do demos and she's kind of flooding the piece with underglaze or glaze. And then I'm going to wipe it back. And I'm going to wipe this back several times. And I use my really old sponges for this as well. And especially when I'm doing a lot of pieces, I will change my water out numerous times and wipe back. So when Jessica said she's also wiping back, this is what she means. So she's applying the pigment and then she's wiping it back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry completely. I'm going to let this dry 24 hours before I put my 2 to 3 coats of glaze on it. So that's kind of the application, applying it, wiping it back. For food safe surfaces, even diluted, if you want to be more on the safe side, make sure you have a lip on your mug and put this like below your mug. Don't put it inside. And then put it maybe on the outside of your bowls and your plates. And you will be just fine. But test. Because I'm going to pour this in here, and I'm going to do this because I know my pigment is really thick in there. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do it on a silk screen, which is kind of fun. Let me just move some things around here. And again, using the silk screens, you can use it like underneath the silk screen, like I did here, underneath the glaze. And you can, I was watching Kathy Skaggs today with the inks. You can put it on greenware. However, because they are oxides, they're not going to stay put, and they're still gonna bleed, even if you put it on greenware and then biscuit. So it's still gonna bleed, it's still gonna have an interaction. So I prefer to put it on bisque. Okay, now let me grab a couple things here. So this is seafoam, and I liked how this is sand and surf. I kind of liked this look underneath, so I kind of wanted to see what it would look like on top. But alas, I ran out of sand and surf. So, so we're gonna play with Winter Storm. And if I look here, this is Winter Storm on Eggshell Wash. This is Winter Storm on Aegean Blue Green. So it looks a little more blue on the Aegean Blue Green. This, it's a little blue, but it's muddy. And it's more dark green. Is this Winter Storm? No. This is Winter Storm on White Cloud. So it's a little lighter blue. So I wanted to see what would happen if I put Winter Storm on top of Seafoam. So I just have, this is like a cookie I made so that I don't ruin my shelves. I did 3 coats of my Seafoam, and I have a silk screen. Let me move this. I have a silk screen here that I made. I made this with small dog prints. There's easy screens that you can make screens with. Easy screens, I think small dog print, and definitely Mako. They have easy screens. They have silk screens that are already pre-made. So if you don't want to make your own. And I made the silk screen to kind of mimic my texture mat and my clay roller. So this is the clay roller from De La Design. This is my texture mat that I sell on my website, and they are reverse imaging. So I'm playing a lot with these 2 textures and the silk screen, seeing if I can come up with some really cool look. Now, small dog print, you go shiny side down. And like the inks that are really thick, if you're doing a silk screen with any sort of underglaze, it has to be thickened. So you either have to let it dehydrate or you have to use the Mako silk screen medium. But I have some old Sand and Surf here, or Winter Storm, and it's really thick. So I just left it as is so I can test with this. And wear your glove. Whenever I do silk screens, because I'm only doing small areas, I like to use my finger. Wear your gloves. And this is definitely not food safe because this is not diluted at all. This is full strength. So I'm literally going to take a glob and I'm going to start smushing it into my silk screen. And oops. A lot of times when I am doing this, I'll tape down my silk screen. I think I moved it. So this might be a little bit blurry, but that's okay. But this is how I did this. And it's how I did this. It's how I did this one. So you want to get it really all in there. And then you're going to just put this, the silk screen, in your bucket of water. So I got a little too thick there, but that's going to look pretty cool. It's going to look something like this. Like right here, I got it a little too thick. So this is going to bleed a little bit more. But that's going to be a good test for me to see how it looks on top of the Seafoam. And the other thing I can do is I can make some more tiles like this with my Seafoam, and then I can put every one of the pigments on top of it so I can see which ones I like. I mean, I like that, I like that. So you're just going to have to play. And so that's how I use it with my silk screens. You can also use a wax resist technique. This was a wax resist technique. So what I did was I put on, let me take off my gloves. What I did was I put 2 coats of Blizzard Blue, or 2 or 3 coats. Then I did a wax resist with like wiggly squiggly. And then what pigment did I use on this? I used steel black on this. So this is steel black. So steel black on top of Blizzard Blue is going more blue. It's not stained black. So you can have a lot of fun with these pigments depending on how you use them. You just have to play. You have to wear your gloves. You have to dilute by a minimum of 50% if you're putting it on something for food. And when you put it on top of the glaze, it is never food safe. Those are the highlights. We got questions, Jessica?
We do. What if they freeze?
They're fine. They're just mixed. They're just mixed with water. So, and you don't have to do anything. Just let them thaw out. And if they're really thick, just add some water. You don't have to add gum. You don't have to add Darvan because they're literally oxides and water. That's all they are.
And I've had mine freeze before, and they are fine. They really are fine. You might just need to thin them down, just mix them back up.
Fine. And let me tell you, a pint of an interactive pigment, depending on what you're doing, is going to last you forever.
Years.
I go through. That's why they're in 4-ounce jars as well. I go through sand and surf and winterwood a lot, or tree bark, because I use the tree bark all the time on my tree stumps. So that's.
And I want to remind everybody, Maria, you have done 3 workshops with us.
4.
You have your whimsical 4. That's right, whimsical garden stacks, and we've had the birds, we had the flower, and we had the fish.
No. Well, no. Yes. So
yes. But what one did I forget?
We did the first one, which was houses. Then we did fish and flowers.
Fish and flowers.
Then we did birds.
Then we did birds.
Then we did
and the tree stumps. That's right. The tree stumps. We just did.
Stumps,
That's right. So, and all of those workshops, you use a lot of pigments and stuff. So if you love this and you're really intrigued, go check out her workshops. Yeah. You know, when you purchase a workshop from Clayshare, you get it forever, just so you know.
Yeah. And I rarely make anything, any garden stack. Just about every piece has a pigment on it.
Yes. So wonderful. Okay. So the Georgie's discount for premium members for everybody is open.
Is
and that's just on glazes.
Just on glazes. ClayShareCon 2025. You can put that if you order online. Keep in mind the website is still antiquated. So it doesn't matter if you have caps or not. They're going to put that in after the fact. If you want to know if they have a glaze in stock, call them directly. You can order directly. Not a big deal.
Yes.
You can send me messages on Instagram at Maria's Art Space. My email is maria@mariasartspace.com. My website is mariasartspace.com. If you want to buy a texture mat, I only have 14 left, and I'm not making any more. They're too expensive.
I hear you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, right. I don't have $500 every time I need to make some. And then there is a Facebook group called Georgie's Ceramic Clay and Glazes User Group. I help moderate that, but nobody at Georgie's, except for me, is moderating that. It is a private group. You must answer membership questions. I started a Blue Sky account. And then once Jessica and Kevin have settled down a bit, we're going to do some groups.
Yeah, we're going to do some classes. You're going to come and do some classes with us. And we will have groups on the clayshare.com website as well.
Right. So I'll make a Georgie's group and I'll make another Whimsical Garden Stacks group as well.
Perfect.
But that's coming down the line. So let me know if you got questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Maria, so much. Always informative and fun. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So much information there. Georgie's Interactive Pigment. Yes, you get these little jars, but they will last you for a very, very long time because you do dilute them down. So remember that. Thank you so much to Maria and to Georgie's for being a part of this year's Clay Share Con. We are going to be giving away a set of the interactive pigments today, I believe, in our giveaway tonight. Yeah, and we have a bunch of giveaways we're doing tonight. I think I didn't really mention it yet. So 24 prizes tonight. And the wonderful thing is, if you're a premium member, you're automatically entered in all our giveaways always. And if you're not, guess what? You can go to clayshare.com and sign up for our email list, and now you're entered. Easy peasy, you can do it. Go, take care of it, do it, get entered. So maybe you could win the interactive pigments. If you don't win, well, you can go get some Georgie's glazes from Georgie's or any of Georgie's distributors. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with Paula McCoy, and she's going to explore the possibilities of using Colors for Earth underglazes. You won't want to miss that. See you soon.